I would like to explain some general participant agreements so that everyone can fully enjoy the program. For our Belong at Berkeley webinars, time, place, and manner policies in line with our Berkeley principles of community do still apply. Please do not engage in any action that disrupts the event or prevents the speakers from being heard. Individuals who are disruptive to the Zoom will be removed to the waiting room. Welcome, everyone. My name is Isabel Di Santiago, and I am the Graduate Pipeline Coordinator for the Office for Graduate Diversity. Live captioning and ASL interpretation are available, and this session is being recorded. Recordings will be shared after editing to ensure accessibility. As questions come up for you, please put them in the Q&A. Again, thank you for joining us for this session of Belong at Berkeley on graduate student wellness. We know that graduate school can be life-changing, and it can be challenging to balance your personal lives, coursework, research, grading, and countless other responsibilities. We hope you will walk away from the session understanding more about what UC Berkeley offers to graduate students to support their wellness, and with insights from our graduate students about what this looks like in action. So next slide. So as we move through our agenda, I invite you to put your questions in the Q&A. It may not be possible for us to address all of your questions, but you can always reach out to the Office for Graduate Diversity at grad.diversity@berkeley.edu or meet with a diversity community fellow. Before we jump into our panel discussion, I'd like to share with you some academic and campus support and resources provided by our University Health Services. Next slide. At UC Berkeley, we recognize that so many factors play a part in your wellness as a graduate student. As you may realize through your participation in these webinars, many resources exist here to support you. This is a small snapshot of some of the common resources students access that contribute to their wellness here at Berkeley, but I want to highlight just a few. Your Graduate Student Affairs Officer, or GSAO, will be the first point of contact when you are in need of academic advice, and they are a wonderful resource for understanding what's available to you on campus as well. We do have a basic needs center that offers support to students with housing, financial, and food-related needs. They run a food pantry and a holistic fund to help supplement unexpected costs related to medical expenses and more. The Center for Support and Intervention works with partners across the campus to provide support to students who may be in distress, to create a support plan and reduce the number of offices a student needs to visit to receive the support needed. The Graduate Assembly, which would be your governing student body, has advocated vigorously and established a Graduate Wellness Center where you can access providers for mental health and disabilities specializing in graduate student services. To support your belonging and integration into the campus community, we offer activities such as student organizations, recreational sports, graduate housing communities, and academic resources. Finally, I want to emphasize our graduate peer support providers. So next slide, please. Graduate peer support providers are current graduate students supervised by faculty in the school psychology program and staff within CAPS, or Counseling and Psychological Services, who are trained to offer peer support. They are not counselors, so primarily will support to offer advice and perspective on navigating UC Berkeley as a graduate student and refer you to resources as appropriate. But not everything requires a licensed professional. Sometimes you need an empathetic ear and help creating a plan, and that's what our peer support providers aim to do. Next slide. It can be challenging to know where to start when accessing resources, but there are many options available to guide you. Start by exploring the mental health homepage. Here you will find on campus, off campus, online, and community specific resources. You can schedule same day appointments with health professionals at University Health Services and elsewhere on campus. There's also the Let's Talk program, which offers informal consultations by counseling and psychological services. And you can find their hours Monday through Friday here, as well as their 24/7 after hours support line. If you're still unsure about where to start, you can also reach out by calling for how to support your well-being. Next slide. While we do our best to prevent crises from occurring, they may happen. The important thing is we want you to know that you are absolutely not alone in navigating these. Same-day appointments for students in crisis are available by calling the office line listed or the after-hours line. Services off campus are also available to you, such as the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and Crisis Support of Alameda County, where Berkeley is located. Next slide. For more information, please visit the University Health Services main website and the mental health homepage. If you have any additional questions, please reach out via email or contact the University Health Services main phone line. The phone lines for counseling and psychological services and social services are also listed here for your reference, and we'll also share these details in the chat. Next slide. So with that, I'd like to now invite each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. Say your name, pronouns if you choose, your undergrad institution, and current department or program.
I guess
Go
I'll
ahead.
go first. Yeah. Hi, my name is Anthony Garcia. I go by he, him, his pronouns. I am a fifth year chemistry PhD student here at Berkeley, and I did my bachelor's degree in chemistry from UC Merced. So I've been around the UC Berkeley campus basically since 2020. So I'm happy to meet all of you and answer any questions that you might have for me today.
And I can just follow the order of how it's placed on the thing. But Julio Salas, pronouns he, him, his. I went to Queensborough Community College, which is in Queens, New York City, where I was born and raised. And then I transferred to Cornell University upstate. And I'm currently a second year sociology PhD student. So went from one coast to the other for grad school.
Hi everyone, my name is Alish. I use the she, they pronouns. I'm in my master's for social welfare program here at Berkeley. I did undergrad at Berkeley, so I've been at Berkeley since 2018. Yeah, so I've been here for a while. I'm excited to answer all your questions.
Thank you for that introduction. So we'll transition over to our first question. We've talked a lot about resources so far, and that wellness can mean many things. What does graduate student wellness mean to you? And I'll let whoever wants to go first.
I could start it off. So graduate wellness to me means like connecting with my cohort, getting around, making sure my basic needs are met, whether that's getting physical activity, making sure like I'm eating well, and getting enough sleep. So like prioritizing my health before deadlines I may have.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like I focus a lot on how I'm doing like mentally and physically. So I always try to make sure that I get enough sleep and that I'm eating, decently well. And so I think when I have like those two things, I definitely feel like a lot better throughout the day, and I feel more prepared to take on like the many different obstacles that grad school might, throw at you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that's been said. And I think specifically, like, I use sociology a lot, like, to really make sense of a lot of what I think and my social world. So I forgive if any of my responses sound very like a sociology kind of response. But I think, like, when I think about, yeah, graduate student wellness, I think it's about putting yourself in spaces that sort of enrich you physically, like, socially and psychologically. As I think that that will be like a key like anchor and support throughout like what can be difficult with grad school. And I think this approach to me feels not super optimistic and like, oh, it's like always good, but it also doesn't ignore the difficulties like course loads, like creating new knowledge, like balancing a practicum as you're taking classes or even being away from home. And so I think there's, yeah, like taking, as it's been said, like taking care of yourself physically and being in spaces that feel good to you. And then the other thing is that I've been reading a lot of like sociology of emotions, and what they kind of talk about is that we're now in a sort of era where we commodify our emotions and we're always thinking what's more healthy, right? There's discourse of like healthy relationships, healthy ways of being, toxic this, and I think that for me, it's taking a step back and think like what really also just works for you. If that may not work for others, or that may, like, even when we think of eating physically better, there's also ways in which that discourse can become very unhealthy for some people, or not as helpful if there's only one way of eating healthy. So I think really thinking like what works best for you. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Um, so our next question, how do you prioritize your academic responsibilities while also making time for self-care and personal growth?
Yeah, I could start off again. Um, so I feel like coming to like my first semester, my cohort really did a good job with like cultivating community. Like we started a group chat, and with them, like we're able to host like study sessions, but also, do like self-care after. So it's like constant check-ins with my cohort of like we're all aware of like when we're starting to feel burnt out. So I think having that community really helps of like relying on each other and like noticing what our needs are. Um, and just reaching out. I think I'll start with that, and then I'll add on more as I think about it.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. How do you prioritize your academic responsibilities while also making time for self-care and personal growth?
Yeah, I think for me, what helps a lot is like communication with like me and my like research advisor, or like me and my like coworkers in my lab. Um, just making it very clear to them that like, hey, sometimes I might be feeling overwhelmed or not sure about like this thing. Like, could you maybe give me some space or maybe give me some time? I really need to kind of have a moment or do something else right now that I think is important to my well-being. So I'm very lucky that I have a great like advisor, and I have like a great set of coworkers that, I feel comfortable with like talking and sharing this information about. And I think kind of just like opening up like that will help just kind of like the mood of the lab in general, because everyone is just more open to talk about this kind of stuff, which is really important.
Yeah, I think I definitely am like a Google Calendar person, so I like really make sure to like do my best to schedule like as like if I schedule like meeting with an advisor or working like reading or writing, I try to also schedule time. And for me, that's really in the mornings. I think the mornings, I notice that if I take time in the morning to like make coffee and just like take us have a seemingly slow morning, even if the rest of the day is busy, that always helps me. So sort of scheduling any quote unquote self-care time and also doing that more regularly and in smaller pieces than maybe for me at least maybe waiting to the weekend to be like I'm gonna do like a face mask and eye mask and all these other things. So I think about it trying to do it little by little and then I think similar to Anthony's point, I'm very communicative with like advisors and faculty I work with and I think thankfully I'm in a space with them where they hold me to a very high standard and like, let's say there's an expectation, I don't meet it, so to speak. Like, there's always flexibility. Like something my advisor will tell me is like, we'll always find ways to pivot. And so it's good to even check in when you're not maybe making the progress you said you would or you thought you would, because then we'll just either talk about what can be done. And I think that that's really helpful for, yeah, not feeling quote unquote bad if things don't happen when we thought it would.
We did receive a question here in the chat. Do professors or program administrators encourage student prioritization of wellness? Can you give examples of a time when you felt supported by faculty or admin to focus on your wellness?
So I think for me, just like one example, there's like a lot of examples of this in my department. I think we're like pretty good about that in chemistry. Um, so when I was like going through like my qualifying exam and like now normally that's like a very stressful like period for graduate students. I was kind of like working really hard and studying really hard, and maybe I wasn't having the best balance in terms of like well-being and my academic responsibilities. I think my qualifying exam committee kind of like noticed this, and they were telling me like, "Hey, you can take a moment to breathe about this, and you don't have to push yourself so hard, for this exam. It is important, but we want you to make sure that you are not like." Burning out like right before the exam. Like it's okay to like take a couple of days off and then like go back to studying. So I think my chair committee or my committee chair and my just my research lab in general, like we're really good at just like noticing this kind of thing and just like watching and like, speaking out when we're seeing someone's pushing themselves like really hard.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been, yeah, I think one instance that comes to mind that like I think now is going to be a thing moving forward in the sociology department is like a grad student retreat among students. And that was sort of being pushed via like a 5-year diversity grant that the department got through Berkeley's graduate division. But like, for example, the grant runs this year, like it's the last year that it's but the chair has already committed some of the money from like the funds that a chair of a department gets towards the grad student retreat. And I think that that's always been a good time. Like I've gone on it twice now, and that's been a good time to connect with people you don't usually get to maybe connect with, or also connect in a setting where it might not just be all about sociology, for example. I think the other thing, at least both that is maybe could be like said about other grad programs, but maybe sociology and specifically my department too, is there is definitely an encouragement of you being a very independent scholar. And so I think that can work well for some and work worse for others. So there isn't so much, I would say, like for example, of like you maybe like in workspaces where there's like a micromanaging culture. So I think there is a lot of room where like and then the last thing I'll say is that I think my advisor also does a good job at like having her own activities that sort of like I know she does kickboxing. She also like prioritizes her mornings and anytime that I've come to her with like different stuff, she also kind of reminds me again, like there's ways in which we can feel negatively and she's like if we take a step back and like think about it like both like at this interplay of psychology and sociology, like I think that that can also help relieve things and not always trying to again perform to this idea of an ideal because like the trap of the ideal is that we also don't even know what the ideal is. So we're like aspiring for like this like healthy version that we're also not super aware of.
Yeah, building off what everyone shared. I guess the example that I'm thinking of for my program specifically, during the election time, a lot of like my cohort mates were feeling stressed out and we expressed that to the administrators. And they hosted like a dinner for us and a talking circle, which was really helpful of like coming together in community. And then just overall, like our professors are always prioritizing our self-care and like taking breaks through lecture. If materials are getting heavy, we'll do breathing exercises. Implementing breaks throughout our like lectures is really important. And then similar to Julio, we also have like retreats as well. So like in the beginning of the semester or school year, we'll have a retreat, and then they're planning a retreat for us at the end of the semester as well, at the end of the school year. So they're huge on like self-care and taking care of yourself.
Thank you. There's also a question on here that I wanted to, or I want to ask you all to answer. Coming to a university with such brilliant minds and cohort, there are chances of feeling imposter syndrome um, cropping up for one of our attendees. Have any of you dealt with imposter syndrome through your graduate studies, and how have you dealt with that? Whoever wants to start.
I'll go first. So the answer is yes. I've had imposter syndrome, and I think I had it for a while. And just so for context, like uh, I started during the pandemic, like my grad school, and so I was doing a lot of my early teaching, like my early like coursework, like on Zoom or through like some sort of online format. And because of that, I wasn't really able to get like a good feel of like what the expectations should be or really like what level I should be working at. And because of that, I think it led me to like comparing myself a lot to like my other classmates who I didn't even know what they looked like because they were like a black square on Zoom, right? So I think when you are not, talking and communicating with other people for a while in person, it kind of starts to, you start to focus a lot on yourself and you kind of develop like maybe some unhealthy habits in that way. So, that period lasted a couple years. So it took a while, but eventually I did get over it. And I think what really helped me was kind of just seeing how much I was growing and progressing as like a scientist and as like an instructor. Like I could feel that, for example, with teaching, I was getting like noticeably like more confident, more comfortable with like talking to students and like teaching them like what they needed to do in the lab. So I think like over time, I really felt like I was doing what I should be doing, and I felt like I was meeting the expectations that I wanted to have for myself.
Yeah, this is always a tricky question. I think I had a lot of imposter syndrome when I transferred from community college to Cornell University. That's when I think I had the most. And so, and yeah, like a comparison game and a like, how did I get here? And sort of how did I think in grad school, I don't feel it as much anymore, but that doesn't remove like sentiments of insecurity, sentiments that, oh, like, will these ideas like hold up if I'm trying to write a research paper? Like, so much of academic writing is like, you sort of enter a conversation, you enter debates, you can be somewhat wrong, or academic article is never really complete, even though it gets published. And so it isn't so, I think, certain. And I think that that doesn't work well with my sort of personality at times. But the way I've thought about it recently is that I think I remind myself, I think similar to Anthony, like what we all have to offer, like what are our strengths. And there's just going to be a way where yeah, like for example, in my cohort, I look at some of my peers, I can outright say they know much more sociological theory than me. But I might say, given that I'm an aspiring immigration scholar, I know much more of like the immigration literature. And it isn't so like, oh, I know more than you or they know more than me, but rather like we all have different strengths or quote unquote weaknesses. And we might not be able to do it all, but doing that. And the second part is, which I sort of realized then, is that we all have our very specific individual journeys. And there's like beauty in that, there's power in that, amidst deep marginality. And I say that coming from a very working, poor immigrant family. Um, that I almost thought about it. I was like, it doesn't really make sense to compare. If I was, for example, comparing with a peer who was like, whose parent maybe was not even, let's just say, a PhD graduate, but a college graduate, whereas my parents didn't even graduate high school. So I was like, the comparison almost doesn't, there's really no reason to do that. And instead, I was like, in focusing on your very specific talents and work, what I've come to realize, especially now that I'm a GSI, graduate student instructor for primarily first gen students, just by me being me and through my own story, it can help others. And that's always sort of been the hope and the goal. So really leaning into, so not thinking, maybe moving away from thinking like, what is it that I don't have or in comparison, but rather like, what do I have and what can I offer? And really leaning into that.
Yeah, just to add on, I feel like imposter syndrome goes and comes in waves at times. For me, like I'm in a professional degree, so a lot of my cohort mates have like a lot of work experience before coming into this program. So I always felt that like in my beginning of semester of like I'm kind of behind. I'm coming straight from undergrad. Everyone here, majority of people here have so much like experience. And I really like what Julio said of like reframing that thought of like, okay, while they might have all this experience, what can I learn from it? And what can they learn from me? So there's always something that you're bringing into the space and they're bringing into the space, and it's important to acknowledge that and seeing it from like a different perspective than pushing yourself down, let's say.
The next question I want to ask you all is, what were your expectations going into your program about preserving your health and wellness, and has that changed since you started?
I could start off. Um, as someone who did undergrad at Berkeley, I feel like my health needs were being met here, like with the services at the Tank Center and all the resources around. That's something that played a huge factor in deciding for my next steps, the next program of what kind of resources and services are provided around the university. And I felt like Berkeley was like one of the top ones where I could reach out to like any like healthcare system around, and there were multiple options rather than just having one option around me, and they're accessible through transportation too. And that's what I'll start off with.
Yeah, I kind of echo like all of that. I grew up in like a really rural area in like SoCal, and then I went to school in a really rural area in the Central Valley. So I think that coming to the Bay Area, I do find it very convenient, like how much like different options and resources we have when it comes to obtaining care like this. I really do appreciate that. I'm on the UC Berkeley student health insurance plan, and I feel like it's done a pretty good job of covering me whenever I needed to have a specific, type of service for my well-being. And there is a lot of options, and I feel that it's all like pretty conveniently located, regardless of where you live in town or maybe outside of town. So I feel like the access has been pretty good, and I'm really glad that we have that, we have this plan for students.
Yeah, I think coming coming in from the East Coast, I was like, wow, the Bay is, and not that New York City is not beautiful. It's the most beautiful place to me in the world, but I was like, the Bay is so beautiful. The weather is so nice. I mean, like just 2 weeks ago in New York City, it was like 30 degrees, snowing, 20 degrees, right? And also when I went upstate for when I transferred, it was also really cold and really like there was a lack of sun and that really affected me. So like today's a beautiful day here in the Bay and it just like it makes it can help so much. Not to mention that the Bay is also very diverse. And so I love spending time like outside of Berkeley, like campus and going to SF or Oakland or just other areas. And I think that that has helped a lot. I think sort of the space I'm in and its demographics really like influence me as someone who sort of came from a city and a very diverse city. And so I feel like I can get that. And then the weather's amazing, which I think really makes things better. So I remember thinking, I was like, let me not just pick Berkeley for the weather, but that was so enticing enough that I was like, I really do wanna, and I knew I wanted to change from New York. So yeah.
Thank you. So want to ask, this is a question that's coming from the Q&A. What do you think is needed to find your own community at Berkeley? What actions should we do as incoming students, or what advice would you provide? Mhm.
I can go first for this one. I think that the for me, well, there's a couple of things, but I think the P2P program, so the Path to the Professoriate, is a first year program for graduate students who are underrepresented across different identities. I met really good, like good friends of mine. Um, I even okay, this is I guess a bit TMI. I met my partner through that program. And I've never really said this out loud, but things like that, and that was a really good way to meet, I think, really cool people and friends who remain. There's other like there might be other clubs that might speak to your identities. I know a big one for some people, for example, is like the GALS, which is like for the graduate group for like Latinx students, for example. Um, I think the other thing is that there's always events going on, and you can think about that from like a grad student perspective, but you could also think about that from like a broader, like there's so much always professors on campus from other schools or like events going on. And so you can just meet a lot of new people. And then another thing I did was like I volunteered with an organization in Fruitvale, Oakland, which is another sort of very diverse place in the Bay. And that what that provided me was a separation from like the academic aspects of it, because I've always missed kind of being around people that are not in that space, like in an academic space. Um, and so then sort of volunteering with the organization has opened up different things. So. And then I think there's an element of maybe putting yourself out there, which it could be like these events or like other things.
Yeah, so I think in my experience, I think when you're like a grad student in like certain departments, I think just by nature of you being there as a student, you kind of just end up joining a lot of groups like kind of automatically. So like in chemistry, we have like for grad students, like uh I don't know if we have it anymore actually, but we used to have like a weekly like social. It was called Chem Keg, and you would basically come out into the plaza by the chemistry buildings, and you would basically like hang out with the grad students and postdocs, and have a drink. It was every Friday afternoon. So that's like you're invited every week from the department to do that. And if you are a grad student, you are a part of the chemistry graduate life committee. They offer like a lot of different events and socials for chemistry students. That gets publicized like pretty often, like online. Um, I think depending on your department, you might be asked to like join the student union or whatever for grad students. And like that, they also have like events and meetings and stuff that you can go to. Um, I think like kind of just s- joining like kind of your departmental organizations or groups was like it's like a good starting point for kind of finding people who are more into like very specific areas of interest that you can like hang out with and make friends. So I would say because of that, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy to find people that you would want to like group up with or spend time with like outside of research or outside of the campus. So I think that's a plus for our campus.
Yeah, I think just to add on, there's gonna be a lot of events in your first semester at Berkeley, so I would just recommend and advise like go to them. And there was moments where I was like, I don't want to go, and then I like went and then met a friend, and I think it's just helpful to just go, put yourself out there, and see who you'll meet, even if it feels like uncomfortable at times. And yeah, and with your cohort, like if there isn't a group chat, start a group chat with your cohort and see like if you want to hang out, see, invite people to the events that you may see, and slowly by slowly you'll like cultivate your community.
Thank you. And Alicia, I think I will ask this question um, or direct this question that we received in the chat for you. In master's programs, especially when you only have 2 years or and you want to and you would want to do and explore so much, what has helped you prioritize your wellness and not fall prey to wanting to do it all?
That's such a good question. I think just like going in with goals of like what do you want to get out of this master's program? What are your like your learning goals? Who do you want to meet? Like if you want to really create a community, it's important to, go to events. But like I guess like know your like you'll know your limits as you're like participating, know like what you need to prioritize, whether that's your classes, your internships. Um, and I think for the Masters in Social Welfare program, they do a really good job with like structuring our classes and like our internships, so that way we're not too stressed out. So I think that's like a learning experience of like knowing your goals and like learning as you go through it.
And are there any this question that I think some of you already kind of answered, but are there any clubs or organizations you're involved in that you would say help with wellness and also give you a break from your studies?
The Inclusive Hub, it's a space for graduate students on campus of Berkeley, and they'll host events. Whether that's like wellness events. We did a wellness event last semester for acupuncture, head massage, and like herbal like medicine making. So always look out for that. I love going studying there, taking breaks there. There's outside space, there's snacks and coffee. So if you want to like get out of your department, that's another space to like go explore.
Yeah, I agree with the Inclusive Excellence Hub. It's a very awesome place to go hang out with other grad students. Um, I would say like outside of the chemistry stuff that I mentioned earlier, I like to spend time with there's an organization on campus called Cal Nerds. Nerds is in like the candy. And basically it's a we kind of operate like a public study space in like Stevens Hall, but we offer a lot of support to like undergraduate students in particular. But anyone can come by, and basically we have like a team of directors that are like student run, and we basically like offer pantry, advising, printing, a bunch of different types of services. When I have time, I like to come by a few hours every week just to like work in the office or just to, get out of the lab. We're a really like fun team of people, and we do a lot of different events. So, we're located in Stevens Hall if you want to like check us out if you ever come by and visit. And yeah, I mean, it really does feel like a really cool community, and I'm happy that I get to be a part of it.
Yeah. So just to be sure, the question is like other sort of spaces on campus that like let you sort of get away from academics, so to speak, right? Yeah, I think. I mean, I really have enjoyed the work I'm doing as a diversity and community fellow. I'm specifically with the Getting into Graduate School program. So we do a lot of work with sort of hosting panels, connecting with undergraduate students, and I think I have found for me that like some the best work is always with has been with undergraduate students. I love this is my first semester as a GSI, and it's been like one of the best things. It's really fun. It's really special. And it's still right, like you can still think about it as work, but I think something I think about in grad school is like what work also fills your like cup or however you want to frame it. Because there is some work that I think can feel more draining just at any level than sort of other things. So I really do enjoy the sort of working like the gigs program. And so like we're putting on like a big 4 day, different day event for like preparing undergraduates for graduate school, and we'll do like STEM, pre-med, law school stuff. Um, and so even though that's work, it doesn't feel like it's like academic stuff, at least for me. Like I think I just genuinely get a lot of joy, and I think it's yeah, I think it allows me to also be like a little more unserious in a way that feels kind of fun and nice. Um, so yeah.
And another question on here. Are there any, talking about also spaces, are there any spots on campus that you find are most popular where students can go to connect with others? Um, and especially other events that incoming graduate students should look out for.
I think subscribing to like the graduate division newsletter. Through that you'll see events that are coming up, and definitely beginning of like the fall semester, you'll see a lot of events that are happening, focusing on like building community and meeting graduate student. So I'll say like read the newsletters. They're really helpful. Like I always see events, resources on there. So support to like look through that.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name of this building correctly, but it's like near the MLK building, or it's well, the building is called Eshelman or Eshelman. I think that building has the graduate assembly or the graduate some sort of graduate building in there. Um, that's like kind of located in Sproul Plaza, which is next to like the Cesar Chavez building and like Zellerback Hall, and also the gym, I think, the RSF. So that might be another place where it might be good to like meet grad students or to like talk to people who are more involved, you know, on campus.
Mhm.
So that would be my suggestion, but uh, it's not like the only thing.
Yeah, I definitely second what's been said. And I think yeah, definitely going to events and meeting people. There's also a lot of like clubs or even clubs you could join. Like I joined the salsa club like my first semester or first year, and that was really fun because they also put on like social events in Berkeley. Like they'll have like a Halloween dancing night. They kind of always do that every Halloween or like other stuff. And then the other thing that I like did for a little bit, and I'm gonna sort of do again, is like there's a lot of like physical education classes and like that. Also, I think like it's to some extent maybe more tailored to undergraduate students, but also as a grad student you can sort of join in. You'll meet people there. Like I had it for a little bit with joining a running club, but there's also like boxing, tennis, and there's like from beginner to like, and I found that that was also a way to connect with people I like had never met or come across. Um, yeah, that was something that like yeah, no one had sort of said like, oh, you should join this class, but it was something that sort of, so I feel like that was a good way to meet people and then also explore a hobby too. Like if you wanted to learn, like they have like like different dancing, different, like I want to do a tennis one at some point.
So another question here that we received is, what is the strategy that you swear by that's helped you manage your many responsibilities and developed a work-life balance?
I can go first. It might be not a good answer, but I'll first say that I don't still think I figured out a good work-life balance. Like there's times where it's much better and times where things get really tight and it gets much sort of worse. But I think I some of the things that have helped is that I think it's back I mentioned earlier like how some work can feel better than other work. For example, I find that after like as a GSI or any work service work that I've done with undergraduates, like it can still at some point feel tiring, but it's still very fulfilling. And so that helps me. If I'm doing too much work that is like, whoa, like I really like it's still work you might need to do, but it's really like intense and hard and maybe not super as enjoyable. If I do too much of that, like even if I work less, then maybe I'm doing a lot more work, but I'm doing like a lot of work that fulfills me. There's a huge difference in how I feel. And then I think the other thing that I try to do or think about is like if I'm taking this day by day, while I also plan long term for different milestones and stuff, what is like a couple things that if I do it, like I'll feel good no matter what happens. And so for me, if I could read and write for like at a minimum an hour every morning, I know that however my day looks like, I'll feel a lot better because I prioritize that. Or like if I don't, like if I know that if I like have a rushed morning, that feels really like bad to me throughout the whole day. So I think thinking like, what is like one, two, maybe even three things that like can ground me? Because a lot of, and then the final thing is like doing your best to limit all, do like saying yes to everything. I feel like this semester and on, I've been saying no a lot more, and it's so like, and really thinking like what is really important in the short term and in the long term. Because I think like when you're, I feel like burnout rises at least a lot for me when there's like when I find that my schedule is so tight that a 30-minute deviation throws me off. So if I can't take 30 extra minutes, if I randomly run into a friend to talk to them, that's if that's gonna throw off my schedule, I need to really reassess what I'm doing, at least for me. So also having like flexibility. Like this morning, I really like to wake up early, like 6. I got up like at 9 a.m. And I remember thinking I could feel bad about this, but I was like, you know what, that was kind of needed. Like I was like a little bit tired and then just being like, oh, and some days it'll be harder to do that. But it's a really like yeah, it's a hard answer. It's a hard question, I think, to answer for sure.
Yeah, I kind of like to take things day by day myself. Usually at like the beginning of the week, I try to like plan out for each day of the week. Like, okay, I want like this set of goals for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. And I do that so that I always feel like I'm working or making progress towards something. And also just to give me like a checklist to make sure that I am feeling like I'm accomplishing something. So if I complete all of my goals for Monday and I still have more work to do, then any additional work that I do is like a bonus. And I kind of convince myself that like, yes, this is a good thing. I am being productive. I'm doing like extra work. I'm doing a good job. It's kind of, you know, it feels like self-gaslighting in a way, but I feel like that has worked for me just to keep myself like on pace and to make sure that I'm not like overburdening myself with like thinking I have to do everything like right away. Um, I think I got in like pretty efficient with that. So, I think just like goal setting and like keeping an organized schedule, I think actually like helps out a lot.
Yeah, just to add on, Google Calendar, like staying organizing on that. Like all our professors use Google Calendar, I would say, around Berkeley. I think that's the best way to like put everything I have throughout the week on there and also makes time for like breaks and stuff. Little task of like make sure to eat, make sure to like, drink water, putting goals on my Google Calendar so that way like everything you have going on, you can see it. And through that you can know like, am I doing too much right now? Or like do I need to like cancel some meetings or take some time off? So yeah, I think finding your tool like before the summer, like what works best for me to stay organized. Google Calendar doesn't have to work with for everyone. I know some folks like to like write down on like a notebook calendar. So if that works for you, I think just coming in with like a tool that it really helps you feel organized. Would help a lot.
And then if I could just add one thing, because I thought about it when both of y'all said like kind of like planning and stuff. There's this really good resource that I sort of wish I had like my first semester and I came across. It's the sort of National Council of Faculty Diversity thing, and they have like a 10 skill curriculum that's really meant, a lot of it is meant for example, academics on the tenure track post PhD. And so, like, one, it goes to show how much of a problem, for lack of a better word, a problem this is for so many folks. But I think this also, like, the skills really, it's like every semester needs a plan and like creating your semester plan and then aligning your time with that and then sort of saying no and different things. I feel like that was really good at like, and I still sort of review it like pretty regularly. Um, yeah, so I think that that's a really good resource.
Thank you all. So I know we're close to the hour, so we'll start wrapping up the session and thank you for sharing all your insights and guidance and resources as well as graduate students. And I want to thank you all for just for attending our Belong at Berkeley session, and we hope to see you in the remaining webinars this week. And just as a reminder, recordings will be shared after they've been edited to ensure accessibility. Just as a reminder, you can also meet with a diversity and community fellow. I know if folks had a few more questions and we didn't get to them. Again, I just want to remind you that you can reach out to our diversity and community fellows. Finally, if you can go on to the final slide, I want to share again our contact information. If you want to, please feel free to reach out to the Office for Graduate Diversity as well. If you have any additional questions. And yeah, just thank you again to all of our panelists, Anthony, Julio, Alishba, for joining us, as well as our ASL interpreters who are also on the call, as well as our captioning. Thank you all. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at the later sessions this week. Thank you.